Hey y'all, and welcome to a special episode of Flick Connection, where we're not talking about movies. No, in this episode, I'm telling you about 10 of the most interesting YouTube channels I've ever discovered. We're talking channels with some mind-blowing science experiments that are a lot of fun to watch, channels with vast amounts of information about our vast universe. I've got a nature channel in the mix, a criminal psychology channel, and one all about movies as well. Thanks to Factor for sponsoring this video. But first up on the list, we've got Steve MOULD. And this is not just a channel about science. Steve goes into science minutia often in his videos, but it's always about something not necessarily profound, but interesting phenomena. The way water reacts in different scenarios. Most recently, he did one about how flames travel around a ring in this very interesting way. So it's typically things that are visually interesting right from the start, and then he goes into great detail as to why these things are happening.
Watch what happens when I pour lighter fluid into this ring-shaped trough and then set light to it. Isn't that weird? I really wanted to figure out what was going on, and in doing so, I fell down a bit of a rabbit hole about things called excitable mediums.
Now next up, we've got one that I probably watch the most, but it's also the most dry YouTube channel, not just on this list, but one of the most dry I've ever watched. The channel is titled Dr. TODD GRANDE. Now Dr. Grande is a licensed professional counselor with a PhD and is known for his work in psychology and mental health, but his videos often focus on things that are topical, either true crime cases that are in the news. Sometimes he delves into old, cold cases, but because I know a lot of you watch a lot of Netflix like me, he very recently analyzed the Piers Morgan interview of the woman who is supposedly the woman Baby Reindeer was based on. And the reason I like his channel so much is he does all of the research. He reads up on these topics, presents them to you in a very concise manner.
Stalking behavior is often divided into 5 types: intimacy stalker, incompetent suitor, rejected stalker, resentful stalker, and predatory stalker.
And yes, the videos are essentially you just looking at him talking to the camera, so I often watch his stuff while I'm working, and you binge watch several videos of his, and it's very much like a podcast that focuses on true crime. He always gives his professional opinions towards the end of the videos, which are often interesting, but honestly, just distilling these different cases into fairly short, consumable content I find really beneficial. Now, I do encourage you to check out all of these channels, subscribe to them, at least watch a couple of the videos that I mentioned. So I've actually listed them out down in the top pinned comment with 2 links for every channel. You've got the channel link and then a link to one of their videos that I found particularly interesting. But my next pick is the only one on this video that has significantly less subscribers than I do, and I love this channel. It's titled No Lab Coat Required. Now, even though this is a science channel, most of his content is based on health, nutrition, lifestyle stuff. More specifically, the negative effects sugar has on your body, the positive effects butter and saturated fats can have on your body, but also how the sugar industry corrupted data and convinced everyone that fat was the cause of our health problems. I mean, it's deep dive stuff. His videos are often in excess of 20 minutes, but the host does an amazing job of holding your attention.
Let's approach this with an open mind. I don't know what it is about the butter conversation that turns us into barbarians. You know, people get defensive over what they believe.
Never completely shut the door on your conclusion. Always leave it slightly cracked, because that leaves room for new insight. That is science. That is genius.
And even though this one too is dry subject matter, just like Dr. TODD GRANDE, but the host here is a lot more engaging. His editing style is fantastic. Not bombastic or too fast-paced, but honestly, for a video about butter, you know, he holds your attention for a solid 20 minutes, and this is one of those channels that could be life-changing. In fact, it will change your relationship with food by changing the way you see different foods in your life.
What's unique about vegetable oil, more than any other oil, is how vulnerable their molecular structure is to oxidation.
Another good example is one about the dangers of seed oils, something most people watching this video are probably not even aware of. It's also not a channel you're going to come away from panicked. You know, you're not going to start just throwing out all the food in your cabinet, but the information is convincing enough that it will likely cause you to change the way you view food and ultimately the way that you eat. Now, my next channel recommendation is a fun one. One of their most recent videos was creating a human-sized bear trap. And when I say human-sized, I mean like this tall of a bear trap. It's wild stuff. But before that, today's sponsor actually pairs really great with no lab coat required, Factor. And that's because Factor meals are designed to help support a healthy lifestyle, whether that's a keto-friendly one, vegan and veggie, Protein Plus, or more wholesome options. Factor has you covered with their fresh, never frozen meals that are delivered directly to your door. Every week, you get to pick from up to 30 different chef-crafted meals, and they're all delicious stuff. Like this shredded chicken thigh cacciatore, amazing chicken thighs, a ton of meat, and a really great sauce. Not to mention almost 40 grams of protein. I love the sun-dried tomato chicken. It's also one of my wife's favorites. They even have fancier options like grilled filet mignon with creamy Parmesan shrimp. Again, all delicious. The meals I get are packed with protein, which has been part of my diet plan for months now, and it's having pretty solid effects if you didn't see one of my more recent videos. And honestly, just having good food on hand like this is a major benefit. I'm much more likely to eat right when the food's available right there, and these meals only take 2 minutes to prep. Factor also offers delicious smoothies, protein shakes. I particularly love the cold brew coffee one. So just head over to factor75.com and don't forget to use my code FlickConnection50. It's gonna get you 50% off your first box with Factor, but you will also save 20% on your second box as long as you maintain an active membership. Again, to get this deal, go to factor75.com, use my code FlickConnection50. That's 50% off your first box, which is a great price, and then you'll also save 20 on your next box. It's a great deal, but speaking of great stuff, let's get back to these YouTube recommendations.
The old bear trap could barely put a dent in this mannequin. So for the first test with the new springs, I'm gonna try to cut this mannequin in half. Oh my God!
The Backyard Scientist is probably the wildest YouTube channel on this list. Now, it's not the wildest one in existence. There's people doing insane stuff on YouTube, but this is a guy doing crazy stuff that is not only wildly entertaining to watch, but it's also informative and interesting. He explains the science behind things like petrified lightning. That was a pretty wild episode.
3, 2, 1.
The Danger Pickle is easily his most viewed video, but I recently watched one where he made a giant bear trap and like he's standing inside the thing. I know he's got safety measures, but this is again just a wildly entertaining one to watch, but he's also doing really unique things with engineering and science, and it's fun to watch with the kids, even though some of the stuff he's doing is really dangerous.
Oh yeah! Your glove is on fire? You're gonna need to put that out.
Now, another science channel, or at least somewhat of a science channel, is VERITASIUM. Now, this one is wildly popular, has millions of subscribers, and every episode he does is incredibly unique. I never feel like he's going back over the same territory again. I'm honestly amazed at how many different ideas he's able to come up with for content.
This is the biggest wave pool in the world, and they can make all kinds of different waves so they can test scale ships.
I mean, he's even got one on YouTube data and the benefits of changing thumbnails. You'll notice I do that here on the channel often. I learned it from him, and it helped elevate this channel significantly. But I mean, he's also got ones on how sewing machines work. It's something I never thought of, like how does the needle put thread in, loop it, and come back out without like creating knots. It's very intriguing. He makes little models and shows how it works. He also did one about wax on bowling lanes. You probably didn't know, but they're not evenly waxed. They're actually waxed in patterns. And his video explains in great detail the different effects that has on the spin of the ball. But one of the most mind-blowing ones I've seen him do is 2 years old now, and it's about how they actually captured the Golden State Killer decades after his crimes. The episode is more about this new form of DNA technology that's actually rounding up rapists and murderers that stopped doing that decades ago. But new DNA technology has actually allowed law enforcement to locate and find some of these people who were never caught. Again, mind-blowing stuff. Now, most of the time you would be coming to my channel for movie recommendations, so I wanted to give you another YouTuber doing some amazing stuff related to movies, but it's very different from mine. And I watch so much content like this, I could easily do a top 10 list of movie-related channels, but my favorite one for a couple of years now is Thomas Flight.
I absolutely love the decision to withhold score from most of this scene. Sometimes the most exciting thing is just letting the sound design do a lot of the work. And then when the score does come in, it has even more impact.
Now, just like me, he independently hosts this channel, but unlike me, he's not actually giving movie recommendations. Rather, he's doing deep dives into current films, typically current films. He's got several videos on Dune. He often analyzes Christopher Nolan's work. He's got a great one on Everything Everywhere All at Once. I felt like I really understood that movie and what the filmmakers were trying to communicate to us much better after watching his video.
The film ultimately affirms a quiet acceptance of a life that openly acknowledges the infinite chaos and possibility swirling around us, vying for our attention, but chooses to quietly ignore it in order to value what's immediately in front of you.
He's even got one on Jordan Peele's Nope, and it's not a deep dive into the movie, but rather some of the sound effects used in the movie, and again, it will change the way you watch movies.
They asked a group of actors who recorded these sounds to scream like they were on a roller coaster, and then asked them to scream like, well, they were getting digested by a giant UFO.
And his videos are very well put together. There's a lot of research and the presentation is always top notch. So if you like to look at movies in kind of a different way, definitely check out Thomas Flight's channel. But then my next pick goes to not necessarily one of the biggest YouTubers, but one of the oldest. He probably didn't appreciate the age comment. Really, Ze Frank has been around on YouTube for a very long time, and his content has evolved over the years, ultimately landing on a series titled True Facts, which are presentations on different, very interesting animals like New Caledonian crows.
These crows have figured out how to use sticks to fish around for grubs and other things that have burrowed into logs and branches. Old Caledonian crows use sticks, but all they did with them was poke each other in the butt. I mean, it was funny. They were voted most fun crow the year they figured that out. Then they all starved to death.
Crows that literally use tools and solve problems. He's also got a recent one on bees and how they actually can do simple math problems, how they play with balls, and all sorts of things I never knew about bees.
They stop and they play with those friggin' balls. Not for some reward or anything like that. They play with balls.
Oh, and I forgot to mention, they're all very funny. They're well scripted, filled with little jokes, and just literally busting at the seams with interesting information. And because they're funny, these are ones my wife and I like to put on late at night. Nature stuff tends to put us to sleep pretty well, but Ze Frank will often end up watching 2, 3, or 4 episodes of True Facts instead of falling asleep. All right, confession, I do have trouble pronouncing the title of my next channel. KURZGESAGT in a nutshell. It's pretty damn close. This one also just busting at the seams with mind-blowing information, and information in a lot of different areas. I get sucked into their stuff about outer space. It's just some of the most mind-blowing stuff I've ever heard. A lot of it is explaining different theories, what they could mean, what they ultimately would lead to, flaws in them, and it's stuff that if I were to read it, not only would it be dry, but I honestly wouldn't understand a lot of what was being said with regards to like astrophysics and things like that. But this channel not only explains it in a way that I thoroughly understand, but it's all done to this beautiful animation style. I mean, really, for like disposable content like YouTube videos, they do an amazing job with this. So they're incredibly fun to watch, but they have so much more than just outer space stuff. One of their most recent videos is titled Smoking is Awesome, and it actually goes into great detail as to what nicotine does to your body, more importantly, your brain. They've also got ones on the potential dangers or benefits of weed, meat, milk, so similar stuff to no lab coat required. But then they've got other stuff on ancient civilizations and anthropology and all manner, again, of just mind-blowing facts. This is another one that's great to binge watch, and because of that animation style, the production level of this channel rivals stuff that they would put on Netflix. It really is top-notch stuff. My next one also rivals things on Netflix, and I'll give you one really specific example, but JCS Criminal Psychology. I know that's a little hard to remember. Don't forget the links are down in that top pinned comment, but it actually stands for Jim Can't Swim. JCS Criminal Psychology. I said it twice because I've had trouble finding this channel in the past, and trust me, true crime fans, you are going to binge watch all 10 hours of available content on this channel. That's right. This channel only has a small handful of videos, but they are some of the best and most interesting true crime videos I've ever seen, and that includes well-produced documentaries on Netflix. He's got one on Jodi Arias, Casey Anthony. The Legend of Jeff is one of the more funny episodes he's got.
This is universally recognized as getting startled, yet the official term in neurophysiology is the startle reflex via auditory stimulus.
And then Jennifer's Solution is a case that also has a Netflix documentary. It is titled What Jennifer Did, and while that documentary is okay, the JCS Criminal Psychology video on it is miles better, packed with way more information and picks apart her behavior in ways that I found really interesting.
The considerable distance between him and the suspect will keep her relaxed enough to be influenced by Phase 1. But this same distance will intensify the pressure once he eventually closes it during Phase 2.
And then, like I said, I had trouble ranking these. They're kind of interchangeable, but the one that I decided to put on the list at number 1 actually just stopped making videos about 4 months ago, but don't worry, there is tons of content on the Tom Scott channel.
This is what transit nerds call a gadget barn, something that looks and sounds futuristic, but is actually worse than a more down-to-earth option.
Now, not only is Tom Scott a really brilliant presenter, but his channel is fascinating because he touches, just like KURZGESAGT, I can't say it twice. But just like that channel, Tom Scott goes into all sorts of different directions. He goes to amazing places around the world to see different engineering projects. He's got a fascinating video on how scientists figured out you could heat food with microwaves by warming up gerbils. It's that kind of stuff, and his presentation is, again, I'm in awe of his presentation skills sometimes. For an example, I will spoil one. He's got a fascinating video on why Dasani water is not sold in the UK, and it's just him holding a Dasani bottle, walking down a kind of dirty sidewalk. But the story as to why there's no Dasani in the UK is incredibly interesting. He holds my attention the entire time walking down this dirty sidewalk, only to have the video end with him walking up again in one take, walking past the old Dasani plant. Very interesting stuff. His stuff's also very short, so it's incredibly bingeable. In his last video, he explained why he was going to stop making videos and that he might return someday soon, but that is the list. Thanks again to Factor for sponsoring this video. Don't forget to check out their link in the description. I mean, supporting sponsors is a great way to support the channel because I couldn't do videos like this one that are so far off from my normal content if they weren't sponsored by great sponsors like Factor. Their link is down in the description. I'll also put a link to DarrenVanDam.com. There, you could sign up for my free newsletter. I send out a Flicks of the Week email every week with 5 recommendations, typically things not discussed here on the YouTube channel. I also make sure they're a very quick read for you, but I will keep making these videos as long as y'all keep watching them. Thank you for checking out this special YouTube recommendation list, and you will see me on the next one.